Very interesting that there's 3 different types of payment terminals here. We have massive battery. I believe it's about 2 megawatt hours or so.
This is much nicer.
It also does very little power.
It feels much nicer.
And then coming over here, we have 3 HYC 400s just for truck charging. So these are dedicated 400 kilowatt, but they actually have 2 cables. So this one is from early Model S and Model X that use a shared port similar to NACS. This is basically 3-phase NACS. But let's get back on the road before I have an upset wife for visiting too many charging stations today. So behind there is actually a bunch of batteries. So this has a really small grid connection, and then it goes into the Kempower cabinet. You can see the 400 kilowatt dual cabinet there, and then charges the cars using that because it's... The coolest part about Uno X is that they show their charging rate, and they do kWt because hour is something that starts with T in Norwegian. So it's 4.8 kroner per kilowatt hour. What's up, guys? It's Brandon Flash. Today you're joining me in Sandvika, Norway, just outside Oslo. We are in a rental Volkswagen ID3. We're about to hit the road on the entire southern coast. Future editor Brandon here. I am trying something new with this video, and because of your guys' feedback on how long I've been posting time lapses, I am posting this as a second version of the same road trip video that I posted yesterday. However, this version has just a little bit of time lapse between each segment, basically as a transition, rather than potentially minutes of time lapse of the beautiful Norway scenery. I highly recommend watching this with the Norwegian scenery, but if you want a more condensed version that skips some of that, then this is the version for you. But I posted both versions, that way you guys can pick. And I want to hear what you guys think and whether you think I should do this for the rest of the videos in this Norwegian road trip series. So comment down below and enjoy the video. So as I mentioned, Bethany and I are in Norway. We spent the last 3 days in Oslo just exploring and such by foot. We picked up this rental ID3 this morning from Avis. And we are going to be exploring the southern coast. We'll be spending the night tonight in Lillesand, kind of about 5 hours away or so, direct shot. We're going to be stopping along the way because this is one of the most EV charging served corridors probably in the world, or at least like by... I think the best way to put it is that people drive so slow here and don't really drive that far distances that, in my opinion, all the charging here is a bit unnecessary. But I mean, it's to the point of gas stations. I think you could make the same argument for gas stations in most parts of the world, that you don't actually need all the gas stations that exist, but because there are so many, you just never even have to think about it. They're just there. So I think Norway is kind of at that point. I'm not using any sort of route planning. I'm just using Apple Maps. I put in a couple different charging stops as stops. We might not even charge at all of them. Actually, we probably won't, because I want to run this down and get like an actual charging curve. We're at 80% right now. But let me show you at least the first couple stops here. And then maybe we'll stop at some additional ones along the way, just depending on what we see. And before we get started, so we're starting at the Circle K in Sandvika, which was the first gas station in the world to actually replace gas pumps with chargers. They used to be old tritium units under the canopy, but now they've been replaced with Alpatronic hyperchargers, 400 kilowatt units. And we're sitting at a charging station. This is a HYC 150, a little bit older unit, and there's a 400 there that we just charged on if you watch my Welcome to Norway video. So here we have roughly the route. So we'll stop in, I believe this is Greyland, and then Larvik, and then ST1. So we're going to be stopping at a couple different spots, and I'll give you guys tours of those sites. We'll also be stopping at Bamble, which was awarded the most influential service station or gas station in the world a few years ago. So this is a very cool route, and of course I'll show you guys some of the beautiful sights along the way. And I think because it's such an influential stop, we're going to stop at Circle K in Kongsberg Porten. along the way, and then we'll do this big loop rather than going the direct route on the E18, and then we'll meet up here at Greyland. So let's continue on this route. We'll be heading out of Oslo and see when our next stop is. So 50 minutes, so that'll be a nice drive. Again, 80%. Let's just reset all our trips. Not the best infotainment in this, but it seems to be okay. Since start. There we go. And then we also have the since charge there, even though we just charged, so that's weird. Maybe that'll restart when we start moving. But let's get on the road. And before we go, there's a Ford Explorer based on the MEB platform. Well, we've made it to Kongsbergporten, and there are the chargers. I'll get out in here in a second. We're averaging 15.9 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, which is roughly 4 miles per kilowatt hour, a little bit worse, like 380 watt hour per mile or so. I need to fix this mount. It's fallen down a little bit. But we're going to go inside and explore. There's another rental EV there, an EX30, and this has a bunch of HYC 300s under a canopy. So here you can see the canopy with just chargers under it. It's interesting that they have two different kinds of payment terminal setup. They have these that are for one charger, like you can see here. And then over here, they actually have a seemingly shared payment terminal kiosk right here. So kind of cool to see that they have two different styles. There's our car. And let's see, and then over here, so these must be newer units, I guess. These ones actually have built-in payment terminals, and this is a low screen, that's a high screen. So definitely a lot of different things that they're trying out here. And you can also see here, they have future-proofing for additional chargers in the ground so that they can add more later on. You can also see the lovely lounge here at Kongsberg, but we are heading back on the road. It's wanting us to do a pretty weird route. So we're up here, and I want to go this way. I think it's going to be a prettier drive. And then we're going to go... Why it's beeping at me. Traffic hazard alert is currently restricted. Interesting. And then there are two sites here in Greyland that are very interesting. So there's a Circle K here on the northbound side that I want to stop at, and then we'll go back. It's only like 3 miles to do a loop. It looks much longer than it is to go back north and then come back down south, which is the way that we're actually going. And then there's actually more charging stations on the southbound side, and then that's the way that we'll continue back down. So we're going to be doing kind of a down, and then we'll go to the northbound. We'll go up, turn around, since it's one direction only for each of these sides. And then we'll come back down, and then we'll head and continue on. I forgot what our next stop is after that. I believe Larvik, maybe. But yeah, we're going to continue and do that route. So let's get to it, and then I'm going to show you guys the gas station side of this site as we exit. And that right there is also a giant battery. And I also noticed that, I mean, it's very interesting that there's 3 different types of payment terminals here. We have massive battery. I believe it's about 2 megawatt hours or so. So that way they can do energy storage and peak shaving here. And this is kind of a test site for Circle K. They've called it the lab within the lab because Norway is a bit of a lab for e-mobility efforts at Circle K. And here you can see the gas station and the car wash in the backside. So there are only 6 positions for liquid fuel, but far more than that for electric fuel. And we'll go out here. I think there's enough room. That is liquid natural gas, not compressed natural gas, but liquid natural gas. Let's see I don't know what this is charging. All electric. That's some sort of Chinese vehicle. But we're going to continue on our route. We have arrived in Greyland. So here we have a bunch of Alptronic hyperchargers. We're still only at 50% state of charge, 115 kilometers driven, and over 4 miles per kilowatt hour, so 13.7 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. Let me see if there's a way to adjust the units. I don't know if there is. I know in the e-tron that I had last time I was in Norway, I had a bunch of different settings. Interior, cockpit, driving, no. Interior lighting. Status. Let's go into settings maybe. Screen. No. Time and date is just time and date. I would think that it would be in there, but maybe language, or is English in here? Okay, so we're already on English UK. Additional keypad, so there's that. Oh, Wi-Fi. Units. There we go, electricity consumption. Let's do miles per kilowatt hour. So 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. I'm going to be that guy doing 115 kilometer showing, but with 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Temperature, sure, we'll go to Fahrenheit. And distance and speed, those can stay in kilometers. So good, now it's actually understandable for both myself and many of the viewers here that are not from Europe. Let's do that. We'll like that. And okay. Turn that off. And air conditioning, or air condition now. There we go. So let me give you guys a tour here. So these are Alptronic HYC 300s. And then there's an ABB random unit over here, which is interesting. So these ones do have payment terminals on them. So there you go. Start charging. To start. Cancel. Let's see what speed this unit is. I wonder if this is a 180. Here's a thing for Elton. Doesn't actually say the speed anywhere on here. Let's see. So this is a Terra 184. This does have CHAdeMO on it. Most of these, if not all of these, have CHAdeMO as well. And then you can also see the additional spots here for potentially additional chargers. It's a very nice site. And there's the ID3 looking good. Let's walk over here. Here you can see some of the upstream equipment. So there's the AC distribution cabinet, the silver box. Fortunately, it's probably not labeled with the current. But nice looking box. This is the transformer. Looks like a little house. Unfortunately, probably doesn't have a rating on it. Yeah. Trafo. Yeah, that's the tricky part here in Norway, is that if you're used to US things where you can see labels, you don't really get that here. So it's a little bit harder to learn about the infrastructure. There is an emergency stop on the backside here. Yeah, again, no label whatsoever that I can tell, unfortunately. And then there's another cabinet right there. Truck diesel, normal, gas. And 2 300 kilowatt units. You can also see where they used to have other equipment here as well, because this site was upgraded. This used to be lower power charging. And I believe they used to have tritium units here. So they had power cabinets and then removed those to then put in these all-in-one units. So these these are actually 400 kilowatt chargers. Awesome. So rather than 300s, these are 400. So this one's 300, that one's 400. So you can see HYC 300, Tesla charging on CCS2, of course. And then here you can see HYC 400. And let me grab Bethany and then we'll walk over to the other side. And there's even more charging. Ooh, look at that smart. I believe that's a number 1 smart. So now I drove over to the other side of this installation. So you can see the hyperchargers that we were at earlier, the 2. And then the park is on the other side of that. So now we're over here, there's Burger King, and then there's even more chargers over there. We're gonna do that whole loop north and then come back south so I can show you guys that. But here we have some Mer chargers. And last time I believe they were these, which was Delta, if I remember correctly, but now they're hyperchargers. So this is a 150 kilowatt station with 300 amp cables there, and CHAdeMO as well. These are really quite something. They're just like on a cable, which is a very strange site design mechanism. Here you can see, so DC CCS, let's see, SPRAC, let's do English, see what it says, back to menu, connect plug, or present card. Looks like there was an emergency stop there that they removed, or maybe an AC socket, not entirely sure. And looks like 1 car per side. So you could use either CCS or CHAdeMO on this side, and then either CCS or CHAdeMO on this side, I guess. There are 2 screens, which is kind of cool. Makes it a little bit easier, I guess. And I believe this is Delta. Let's see if there's a label here. There we go. So there we go, Delta Electronics, 150 kilowatt, 4-in-1. And here we have, so another transformer. This is an ABB transformer. Again, I don't think we're gonna find any labels on here. Seemingly not. Yeah, no labels that I can see. But then we have our distribution cabinet here. Very compact. And then you actually have kind of an access panel there as well. And it looks like there's a modem up there too. So again, they have these access plates. Here they are illustrating 300 kilowatts to 1, 150 to 2. And to my knowledge, this is actually a company owned by the utility. So these are fairly new units. You can tell by 24. And these are actually HYC 400s. But I guess they are limited to 300 kilowatts each by only having 3 power stacks rather than 4. Here you can see all the traffic. So this is definitely a popular route. And then you can kind of see some of the ChemPower stuff over there. So we're going to go over there on our way down. So we've got CHAdeMO charging, we've got a smart charging, and all of these are labeled as 300 kilowatts. And these kind of concrete or metal things are pretty interesting, but I kind of like them. They also have lights on them, so hopefully they light up at night. And let's continue on. We're going to go that way. I believe it's like 6 kilometers, and then we're going to come back down, and then I'll see you guys at that side of the same spot. We could walk over there, but we have to actually drive that way anyway, so it's totally fine to just do the kind of roundabout method. So now we are on the other side of this, which I believe is the E18. And we're now on the side that has Mare, on this side with 4 HYC 400s, but at 300 kilowatt, with a similar kind of like arch setup thing. And then over here we have Recharge, which is not the same as Shell Recharge, even though it's out of Shell. Not confusing at all. And then we have some Power chargers. So they have 2 600 kilowatt cabinets. And then let's see if I can see this screen. It's a little hard to see with polarized sunglasses. These are only showing 200 kilowatts. They have customized the interface a fair bit. They show their app. They also have their app up here. And looking on Elton, they're about the same price whether you're using the Circle K, the Mare, or the Recharge stations. So it looks like about 5.99 Nook per kilowatt hour on the paid payment terminal. So this is a non-chip tap-only payment terminal. They do have just wash or fluid there. It looks like 300 amp max, which is not great. There we have an ID Buzz, Jaguar I-Pace. Those two actually have Chatamo on them as well, whereas actually all the rest of these only have CCS2. And it's interesting to see bollards here in Norway because you don't normally see bollards. So these are nominal 300, peak current 500 amps. So maybe these do boost to 500 amps. Bethany, what do you think of this? Try to extend it. Yeah. What was that?
It's not comfortable.
Is it heavy? And interestingly, the cable still drags on the ground, even with the cable management, so seems to kind of defeat the purpose, in my opinion. But yeah, we do have people charging over here. Let's look at the cabinets. So, C503 charging unit. And looks like 1500 amp max, 600 kilowatt. And you can hear some of the fans running. And then over here, we've got, again, the Alpatronic hyperchargers with the cable management, of course. We have the transformer there, the distribution cabinet there. And then for the Power units, the transformer is right over there, then run over here. And there's so much charging here that you see a lot of EVs just parked because they don't actually need to charge, just like us, that they're just stopping because they want a break rather than because they need to charge. You can also see some of the plates here from where they swapped out equipment that was there before and how they're using that. Bethany, try one of these out. There's no button. What was that?
This would be really awkward to put in the car.
Fair. Here you can see how they do some of their app things. Let's see if it changes languages. It does not change language. And then you can also see the payment terminal here. So that's actually, so the Powers were 5.99 Nook per kilowatt hour. These are 5.89. There's an i3.
This one does have a switch.
How come what?
This one does have a switch.
Because that's Chatamo.
This is much nicer.
It also does very little power.
It feels much nicer.
That's probably the first time that's ever been said. And I just want to point out how badass those trucks look with all their lights and everything. Trucks here are pretty cool. Pick one. Let's do 8 because you're probably going to want some.
Coffee's $1. I did it already.
No, I went to.
Once you buy more.
Well, it's funny because it popped up in Norwegian at first, the suggestions.
That's your rip.
Bethany, what did you think of Burger King in Norway?
Tastes about the same.
I mean,
They have different options, definitely. At least different dessert options than the U.S. But maybe the food's similar. They didn't have chicken fries. They just had chicken nuggets.
I think chicken fries are a pretty American thing. I had tiny pancakes that were like the size of maybe like dollar coin size. Not quarter size, but like dollar coin.
Yeah.
They were pretty good, actually. But they came with strawberry jelly in just like a little container like you would use to spread onto like toast. But I
Pancake wasn't dense enough to pick up the
yeah, I had to like use a fork to like aerate this jelly, if you will, and then use the fork to then pick up the jelly and the pancake. It was a bit of an odd experience to eat, but tasted pretty good once I figured out the method to the madness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I got coffee, but I ordered a cappuccino, and it was like an American style cappuccino, which was surprising. I was expecting like European shot style cappuccino with just espresso with a little bit of milk, but this was like full on 12-ounce cup-ish.
The majority of signs in there were English, so it makes sense that it was fairly Americanized.
But if you order a cappuccino at McDonald's in Norway, you're still going to get European style. So that's why it was surprising. Anyway, there's an American style truck in front of us, which is interesting. And we're about to hit the road, so let me show you that truck and then show you the route. So rather than the typical cab over trucks, there's an American style cab backward. I don't know what that would be called, but American style truck, if you will. And so here's our kind of rough route. I added a few other stops. So we currently have 5 stops on our way to our hotel. We'll be stopping in the Larvik area, and then there's one around here, and then in Bambla. Let's see if it shows the full route. Apple Maps is really not great for this kind of use. So Larvik, and then Vedestrand. I'm probably totally butchering that. And then this one, Wat Maria. Someone correct me, please. I'm sure someone will. That's an Uno X, I believe, and then there's this ST1, and then I forgot what other one I added around here, but we've got about 30 miles, about half hour till our next stop, and I'll see you guys there. Well, we are now in Foxrod, Norway, and we have 4 different operators here within about half a mile or so of each other, right off the same exit. So behind me, we have 24 version 3 Tesla supercharger stalls with CCS2. I'll get Bethany's impression of how those handles are in just a moment. And then over here we have Mare with Alpatronic hyperchargers, and farther back that I'll stop at on the way out, we actually have Recharge with Chempower satellite systems. And then behind me, we have someone I've never heard of called Power Charge. So I'm actually going to walk over there and see what the heck those are and show you guys. So these are Power Charge 350 kilowatt. I believe these are Delta. We'll find out in just a second. There's the distribution cabinet. Yeah, they're Delta. So they have payment there. You have to use the Supercharge app, even though they say Power Charge. So Supercharge, which is interesting. Let's see what these handles are rated for. So 300 amp nominal. Let's see if we can find a label on this. It's probably on the back side. That is not the most accessible, or it's actually over there in the bushes, which I will not be going in. But it is Delta. And then there's another one over here, which is interesting, where we have some tanks and things. So these ones seem to be intended for truck use. I'd be very curious to see how much utilization they get here. This just seems like a little bit of an odd spot to have heavy duty truck charging. Looks like multiple people have dropped their trailers here, but not actually charging here. And these are air-cooled cables, so really not that well suited for truck charging. This one appears to be only 200 kilowatt. This one doesn't even have a power label on it. So, very interesting. Never heard of that operator before, and I'm fairly familiar with Norwegian charging operators. I'm very curious if that's an electric bus. I'm going to go with probably not. But let's walk back over here. There you can see the 6 Mare hyperchargers. Those look great. Let me show you what a CCS2 handle looks like on a supercharger as well. So just like in the US, they are falling apart. So you just pull this out, and there you have it. So this is pretty much peak form of CCS2. Very sleek. There you can see the instructions. You can also see that these are rated for 425 amps rather than the 350 that NAX is rated for. So you actually just lift out like that. Looks like they have a little hook in there similar to NAX. So let me see what Bethany thinks. She was taking a nap. You have to lift it up a little bit and then out. What do you think of that?
Way lighter. Lighter.
But if this reached your car fine, would this be your preferred cable?
Yep.
Is that much easier to use? What do you think of how it looks too? I think this one might be a little broken as far as how it latches in there.
It looks like a charging cable.
Okay. So no strong preference?
No. This whole thing is broken.
Yeah. They all are kind of falling apart everywhere. There's a Model S P100D taxi. That is just a ridiculous sight to see. Okay, let's head over to the recharge station after we walk by Mare. But I think this is going to be pretty much the same. I'll open the door for the princess as she goes back to her nap. Thanks for your impressions. And then over here we have quite a few cars charging. Mach-E, 2 Teslas, a few other things. I did just see Honda E spotting. Honda E spotting. Love it. Let's take a look at what the spec is on these. So that's interesting. They didn't put the pole far enough away. These are labeled as 300 kilowatt. Like you can see, they actually branded their distribution cabinet, which looks nice. They actually have 2 of them, which is also interesting. Here we have an MG Marvel R. Never heard of that. And these ones are actually HYC 300. So it seems like their standard is just to use 300 kilowatt output, but maybe they just needed to order the 400s, so they just spec them so that their whole network is the same rather than upgrading some and not the others. I don't see any more of those truck charging, so let's head over to the recharge station. I'll show you guys that. Look at this Mach-E too. So just to give some context, the superchargers are to the right. Here are the Mare stations. You can also see the little totems they have above to help you find them. It's a nice touch. They have lights as well. And then we'll head over to the recharge station. There are 2 Leafs charging. Wow. Shadow does get used here because there are a lot of Leafs. And then here you can see some ChemPower units. So these are the closer ones. And then there's even more over here at the gas station. So tons of charging capacity here. It's just wild. Wow, this person's impatient. I mean, I guess it did slow down, but still, passing in a parking lot is aggressive. I'm slightly surprised they haven't put any under the canopies here either. And there is, yeah, Renault. And of course, Kempower and Kempower. So let's get on the road. We'll continue. There's another charging cabinet. And I think it's, let's see, 6 miles until our next stop. Well, we have now arrived in Ringsdalskogen, which has 5 Alpatronic HYC 300s, I believe. Let's double check. We're at a Circle K, of course. Last time I was here, this site was being built, so this was a construction zone. And I believe there were 2 50 kilowatts here, and then that was being built, if I remember correctly. So these are, in fact, 300s. You can also see these nice platforms that they're using, so that way they can swap out chargers as they see fit in the future. Interesting that this one has short cables with a high screen, so it's not using the cable management. Maybe those cables will be swapped out. This one has the long cables with cable management and CHAdeMO. These ones have the Amphenol cables, whereas those ones have the HPC cables. And then over here, so there's the AC distribution cabinet, the 3 different transformers. There's the Ionity transformer, as well as the Ionity DC rectifiers. So these are tritium rectifiers. So I believe it's 3, and then this is a distribution. Let's see. IT unit. So maybe that's just grid unit. So you have multiple transformers. Look how massive that Ionity transformer is. Just crazy how big that is. So these are actually 480 TNC. So that's a 480 volt transformer, I guess. Rather than these ones are most likely 400 volt, which would be the norm here. Of course, trailers everywhere here. These are pull-through style. So these are, there's, what do we have, 12 Ionity stalls. There's a Mach-E GT and an Explorer. Got to get a photo of that. That's pretty cool to see. If my phone wants to cooperate, my other phone. Cool to see that. And then we're also going to come over to the other side. You can see how massive these are. These are also using Phoenix Contact HPC cables. These are lighter because they're cooled. You can see the plug and charge logo. And the screen, let's do. So these are 540 NUC. Or, yeah, 5.4 NUC per kilowatt hour, or you can get a discount with the Ionity Passport. You can also see these modular bases being used. There's a lot more flexibility. This is very common in Norway, but seems to not be used pretty much anywhere else, which is very strange to me. I think it's definitely the better way to build charging infrastructure. And then coming over here, we have 3 HYC 400s just for truck charging. So these are dedicated 400 kilowatt. We're walking through the diesel pumps. So there's one and then another ones. Interesting that there's turf over here instead of actual grass. So dedicated transformer, dedicated distribution cabinet. And here we have it, 400 kilowatt. I don't think there's anything stopping anyone from using these for passenger vehicles. So if you had a Zeekr or a Taycan or whatever, and you wanted a bit faster charging, you could come over here. And if you're towing, I probably would. But these are set up that for MCS style port location where it's on the driver right behind the cab. Just take a look here. It's just, there you can see HYC 400. And these are max 600 amp output right there. 600 CCS2 max of 1000 volts. And there are 3 of them not being used right now. And then looking across the street at Burger King, there are quite a few Tesla superchargers and quite a few Teslas using them. So this is yet another example of competition helping the market, and having more charging options is never a bad thing. So I love to see Tesla, Ionity, Circle K all coexisting, and that way people have their options. It depends on what their preference is, whether they have, I don't know, relations or membership pricing with one of them or all of them, and it just is better for everyone. And it's worth noting that in addition to the 3 400s that are installed here, I don't actually know what that says. I think that says for use last, for professional use primary, something like that. I'll translate that, but most likely saying for truck drivers first. Then you can see they have 3 more prep spots for charging installation as well. So great to see this location really expanding, and there are definitely more charging spots than gas pumps. Something that I find very fascinating is that because people don't need to charge that often here with how much range you have with how slow you drive, that there are lots of EVs just parked in front of the store like we are right now, not even using the chargers. And I mean, the percentage of EVs just in the parking lots is very high, especially considering you're not even using the charging. Mm-hmm. Just people stopping. And I think that's what a lot of people want in America, but in order to accomplish that same thing there, you need a lot more range and a lot faster charging. Like, to accomplish this kind of experience where we're driving for 5+ hours, we started with 80% in San Vica, and we're still at 23%. And I'm not even charging here when there's charging, because the next stop we're going to has charging in 33 miles. Why would I charge right now? I can just charge at the next one while we're eating food anyway. And I mean, that's just the flexibility you don't have in the US with how fast we go and how much bigger the vehicles are, unless you have massive range. Because in the US you're driving 80+ miles an hour on most road trips, except in the Northeast, and you need a lot more energy for that. What do you think of road tripping here? Is it what you expected?
I mean, I guess I don't think I really had an expectation. So,
but compared to the US, where you're used to driving for basically 2 hours and then charging for half an hour, 40 minutes or so, it's very different.
I think it's a more enjoyable experience because you actually are going slow enough that, like, you can enjoy the sights more than in the US, where usually you're going 70, 80 miles an hour, and that's just not.
You're just blasting through areas, basically.
Yeah, I think it's just a kind of more luxurious, isn't quite the right word, but like
laid back.
Yeah. Style.
Makes sense. And something I forgot to mention actually is that not only are these version 2 superchargers, 150 kilowatt, open to all, but they actually have 2 cables. So this one is from early Model S and Model X that use a shared port similar to NACS. This is basically 3-phase NACS. And see that little arrow? That's what makes it that this will only work on Teslas, because they have that slot in their charge port. But otherwise, this in theory could go into the AC of non-Teslas and they would just not work. But you also have then this, which is CCS2, but this is for Model 3, Model Y, and then all new SX. But it's very interesting to see this because this does not exist in the US. Well, we have arrived to Circle K Bambla with 4%, 11 kilometers remaining. We have driven, let's see, that of course disappeared the moment I took my foot off the brake after I opened the door. Let's see. Data. So since charge, 239 kilometers, averaging 4 miles per kilowatt hour at 69 kilometers an hour. So pretty decent efficiency. Nothing really to complain about there. And then the typical Volkswagen right now, 0.8 kilowatt hour per hour, or 0.9 kilowatt hour per hour, which is, that's not correct. That should be, like, I understand what they're saying, but that's not correct. So we are at Bambla. I'll give you guys a tour here in a moment after we get plugged in. There's a very nice e-tron GT. Let's open the charge port, and then I'll use the Elton app to activate it. So there we go, we're in English. I'll get plugged in. Gotta love the pull-through sight design here. Let's open up Elton. E18 Bambla. Plugged in. You can also confirm 74673. Start charging. Starting charger, very fast. So there we go. Let's see what this car does. I'm really curious, actually. I have no idea what the charging capabilities of this vehicle are. There we go, charging details. I would hope at least 100 kilowatt. Looks like about 310 kilowatt, 125 kilowatt charging. Or sorry, 310 amp, 125 kilowatt. So that's actually pretty darn acceptable, I'd say, for such a small battery. That's about 3C charging roughly, so it showed 35 minutes to 100%, which is actually quite good. Here you can see what it looks like when you're charging. I don't think it's gotten enough data yet to show kilowatt hour added. That comes incrementally, so now it's ramping up slightly as the pack voltage is coming up. And this has really good pack voltage. Over 400 volts at like sub 10% is awesome. So I think we'll probably ramp up slowly to like 130, 140 kilowatt if it holds the same current. Certainly no complaints from me on that charging performance so far. But here we have version 3 Tesla superchargers. So we have, I believe, 20 of them. So all over here. There's a shocking amount of brand new Model Ys around here, just driving on the roads. So here we have a bunch of hyperchargers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there's provisions also for additional ones. So you can see 1, 2, 3. And last time I was here, there were actually some 50 kilowatt and some tritium 175 kilowatt units as well. So great to see that they've expanded. So it looks like this one actually has different charge handles. This one has HPC handles, so nice. Not going to interrupt their charging session. Well, not that I'd interrupt it, but people are weird in Europe compared to in the US. Let's see how we're doing. Already up to 12% after 2.5 minutes, so that's really not bad at all. Up to 131 kilowatt. So this is Circle K Bambala, and let's just see if they have any truck charging. Bethany is very much relaxing. Meandered over to the truck side of the Circle K. There's surprisingly not truck charging here, even though there's this entire truck park, I guess. There's one truck here. Let's see what these little islands are. Maybe these are provisioned for charging. Doesn't really appear that way. That's a cool truck though. I really like the cab over style. So it looks like these are just power hookups, I guess, for like standby power. I can never remember what the different color plugs mean, but whatever the red plug is, pin and sleeve. So it looks like 32 amp 400 volt is what I can tell there. So 22 kilowatts. So you could 3-phase charge here. And there are 6 of these, so fairly cool. Look at that short little truck. Anyway, while we're charging, we're gonna run in and grab some food or something. It is 5 o'clock in the evening here. So it is time for some real food, I think. We've been having some rolls and things. So I'm not that hungry, but I'm sure Bethany is, being pregnant. And this is why pull-through charging is so important. An ID5 towing a trailer, pull-through charging. Pretty impressed with the charging performance on this. We've been charging for 22 minutes. Added 34-ish kilowatt hour. Still at 58 kilowatt at 64%. So I'll actually probably get going here in a moment because we have 2 other stops that we can stop at. But not bad charging performance. I'll probably just get it to 80% so I can have a curve recorded. Well, we just finished charging and we added 4 to 80% in 33.5 minutes, adding 43.5 kilowatt hour, 78 kilowatt average. Here's the charging curve. Not sure what those little dips are. That's a little bit odd. This little bit of a rise was when I got in the car, and I think that's when the AC kicked on. So that's what that rise was. So let's get unplugged. And then we're going to continue on. We've got a little bit of a longer leg for this next jaunt, so we can actually cover some distance, because it is getting a little bit into the evening. And we've got some distance cover. Look at this, EQA, we don't get those in the US market. And there you can see we have 278 kilometers estimated range. I did not screen record there, that was dumb of me, oops. 41.4 kilowatt hour in the pack. And the battery is starting to cool off, and it's at about 42 C max, 40 min, but 431 volts at 80%, so pretty decent actually. So let's get on the road. We'll hit go. Next stop in just under 40 miles. I believe that's the ST1 station, so we're not going to charge there, but we'll stop by, check it out, and then we'll continue on, and then we'll be basically in Lillesand, which is where our hotel for the night is. And worth noting that there's actually more charging at this stop at the Burger King. I was going to call it the Burger Donald's or something. I don't know. But there's some Chempower recharge stations at the Burger King just up here. But yeah, so lots of charging options here. You've got Tesla, Circle K, and recharge. Whether you want to be at a gas station or you want to be at Burger King, you have all the options you could want. Well, we are in Tvedestrand, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm probably totally butchering that, but we have a whole bunch of Chempower stalls here. I don't even know how many. I'll have to count them before I tell you guys, because otherwise I will definitely get it wrong. So there are 8 over there. Those are a recharge. Let's see if these are being advertised as 150 kilowatt or what. That is a massive transformer. Wow. That is huge. I didn't even realize that was the transformer there for a second. So we have a Kempower cabinet over here. It looks like one of the 600 kilowatt style. And looks like they have provisions for an additional one as well, which is good to see. I wish the US would do that more often. Looks like they have provisions for both an additional AC distribution cabinet with the upstream circuit breakers, as well as a Kempower cabinet. So you have that split there, just like you have there. And I assume they have conduits run from here all the way into the transformer. So it looks like these ones are all labeled as 150 kilowatt as far as I can tell. A few of them have CHAdeMO, which is reasonable to have a few of them. Looks like this is car washing. So nothing as far as pricing there. Let's see. These screens are definitely hard to see. This looks like $5.99 kroner per kilowatt hour, which seems to be pretty normal. And then over here we have even more of them, so a separate installation. I just cannot get over how massive this transformer is. That's crazy. That's like a whole, I mean, it's a substation. That's not even a transformer at that point. I'd love to know the input and output voltages of this thing, because that is huge. I mean, it's a giant concrete building. It's just fascinating to me how differently they do electrical infrastructure here than we do in the US. And then we have another 600 kilowatt Kempower cabinet with the AC cabinet there. And typically there are not labels, unfortunately. Yeah, that doesn't show anything as far as power output. But here you can see we have all of these charging stations. And a seemingly pretty nice looking gas station. There's a Kia Soul EV, one of the older ones, charging on CHAdeMO. We've got another ID3 down here. And then this is what's the interesting part. These are the new ST1, I believe, is the company that's operating them. So it's like, so they want pay to start. And these ones are showing 400 kilowatt for 800 volt or 200 kilowatt for 400 volts. So this must be 500 amp max. I don't see a current label actually, which is interesting. Let's see if the dispenser shows a label at all. So 300 amp, that must be nominal. And interestingly, that these ones have the payment terminal slightly offset, which is definitely a much better experience than those ones. And those have one that's lowered to the ground for accessibility. Yeah, and these are all the same. No CHAdeMO over on these. And then we, of course, have the charging cabinet over here as well. Another 600 kilowatt Kempower. It looks like they're provisioned for another one, so that way they could actually double the site power that these are shared across. And I believe that's probably access to the conduits that are running between these so that they can redirect them if needed. So that's pretty cleverly done. Let's see if we've got a label. And there we have it, max 1500 amps. So overall, a pretty nice installation, I will say. And that's a nice looking gas station as well. Vegetarian cafe, something, baguette, pulsa, or hamburger. So I'll have to go inside and check it out. Bethany, what are you eating?
Sour peaches.
Oh.
They're green.
Were you offering them to me?
I was just reading. You thought I was offering.
She said, sour peaches? And I said, yes, please. And her response was, I wasn't offering. Who says something like that and doesn't offer them?
I wasn't opening them yet.
Well, we're headed to an Uno X up the road and then we'll continue on. I think we have about an hour or so to the hotel.
'Cause I go once
Well, we made it to the Uno X down the street in Tvedestrand. And this is a very interesting install. We have a 300 kilowatt, which is actually an HYC 400, but with only 3 power stacks. And then we have 2 400 kilowatt HYC 400s. But I'm intrigued on multiple levels. I'm not sure what's going on with this charging pad and what these kind of pad things are. It looks pretty interesting. I'm just not entirely sure what it is. Like, I guess it's a standing pad, but you're not actually going to stand that close. So that's very strange. They're using software version 2.4, so they have a little bit different interface. So let's put it into English. So you can see connectors, plug A, plug B, instructions. Similar to what we've seen in the US. Pretty cheap, 4.8 kroner per kilowatt hour. And they're using a different payment terminal, actually. Looks like you can change the language, maybe? You can tap the flag, but you can't actually change the language. And it even has like a little screen protector maybe on it. I can't quite tell. That's different than we've seen on most of the other payment terminals. They also have color matched cable management, which is interesting. That's a lot of yellow. I was also under the impression that Uno X is only installing charging at their own locations, but it seems like they're doing third-party locations as well. So this is like a little grocery store, like general store kind of thing, it seems. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but man, is it beautiful here. And also these are limited to 500 amp output rather than 600 amp output, as you can tell here looking at the data label. And so this one is 472.5 amp input, but it's labeled as 400 kilowatt. So this one actually I think is a 300 kilowatt. Let's see, connectors. Does it show available power? No, it doesn't show available power. So that's very interesting. I think this one might actually be labeled wrong. And then we have this one. This one should be 630 amps. So that one's 472.5 also. So they may have purchased these with 3 power stacks and then added one back in to make them 400 kilowatt. Just a very interesting install, but I like it. It's a really nice install, actually. I like the bollards. A lot of installations in Europe don't have bollards, and I think they are important so that people don't hit chargers, but I mean, this looks really nice, actually. Yellow is bright, but they really stand out in the parking lot. And it ties in with the markings and everything, and looks like this is a pretty new installation. Looks like there was just 6 stalls here existing. That's what these white lines are. And then looks like they just pushed it out a little bit and then added the chargers and called it good. They have their equipment over here. So the little transformer, the little house looking thing. The transformers here are so funny looking. And then the distribution cabinet here. Looks like they also have an antenna on it as well. And as is typical, no labels whatsoever, unfortunately, so. Yeah, no current ratings or anything, so it's just here. And there's the transformers. Both are Siemens. But let's get back on the road before I have an upset wife for visiting too many charging stations today. Well, I'm just playing off here because I wanted to show that not every charging station is like a massive hub. Like I've mostly been showing that there are a lot of smaller stations as well. So we're in Arendal at Circle K. This is a smaller one. I believe it's only 4 stalls. But just want to show you guys that real quick. There's also some other stuff here. This is a fairly tight location. There's like a grocery store and some other stuff going on. Like it's actually a little tricky getting around here. But just wanted to show you guys quick, if I can find it. Oh, this is actually an interesting one. This is using Elaware. So this is actually a battery-based system. I didn't even realize this when I pulled it up. But I don't need to charge here, so I'll just show you guys. So let's see. So behind there is actually a bunch of batteries. So this has a really small grid connection, and then it goes into the Kempower cabinet. You can see the 400 kilowatt dual cabinet there, and then charges the cars using that because it's just a Kempower system. The newer systems actually use Elaware chargers. You can also see the little payment kiosk there in the middle. So really cool system. Only uses like a 50 kilowatt grid connection, but can output, I believe, 300 kilowatts. So super cool. So here you can see the incoming power and then some of the additional electronics. And then you have the Pixie batteries here. Yeah, I believe these are Pixie batteries. And then the Kempower cabinet there. And then it just charges using the Kempower system off to 2 posts for 4 ports. So pretty cool system. And it comes on a shipping container. So this whole thing comes pre-assembled and then is just plopped in place basically. And I believe this was installed to replace some 50 kilowatt chargers. So really cool system. Also cool to see this being hooked up. They just back it up and then that extends, I think, actually. Probably had to get gas and couldn't maneuver, but yeah, they even put the Ladestation, which is charging station, on the totem pole there. And Bethany, tell the world what you've discovered about Arendal as we head back off.
We're in real life Frozen land,
What do you mean by that?
where all the movies for Frozen are based is here.
In imagination, basically, right?
Yeah, they call it Arendelle, and I think it's spelled slightly differently, but
I mean, that might be...
it's named after this.
That might be how it's pronounced, and I'm just butchering it. That's entirely possible.
Also possible. It is spelled differently according to Google, but
Okay. Probably just Americanized it.
maybe.
And we have 22 miles, 25 minutes. We're headed to... I forgot what charging station we're actually headed to, but it's near the hotel. So we'll probably just top up to 80% just to start tomorrow pretty well. I don't think there's charging at our hotel. I also didn't even look. But yeah, just to start off tomorrow with a good start. That way we don't have to charge for a while, even though we'll probably visit some charging stations. But let's get on the road. Well, I was pulling into the 7-Eleven with Uno X charging, but there's actually Kopla charging here as well, with Kempower 320 or 160 kilowatt, depending on 400 and 800 volt, it seems. I like the styling. They look pretty clean. And then there's some over here for trucks, which is cool. Looks like we've got some sort of towing vehicle using one, which makes total sense. Yeah, an Audi e-tron towing a camper. Looks like they're struggling a little bit, but that's okay. Maybe they're Americans renting it or something. Who knows? Yeah, that's cool to see. We've got even some signs here. Let's see if I can see with the sun. Goodness. And then over here we have the Uno X hyperchargers. So we have 4 of them, 300 kilowatts each. And then the distribution cabinet there with the antennas. And then again, the interesting pads with the bollards. So I really would like to understand what they're doing with those bollard pads, whatever, because they're actually kind of cool. Well, let's get this activated. It's interesting. They label all their connectors. Oh, look at that e-tron driving by with their caravan. So this operator, Uno X, well, that's peeling, not great. They label their connectors alphabetically across the site, which is kind of interesting. They're also using a mix of connectors. So they've got Amphenol cables and they have Phoenix contact cables here. So we're plugged in. We're on plug F. Let's see how quick it pops up here. If I can adjust my hands here so I can see better. Guess let's go back in there. Not every operator maybe supports that function, so we'll do start charging. Preparing charger. You can actually see the lights here more easily now that it's not as bright out. You can hear the good noises of the hypercharger. And we are starting. Just like that. Let's go into details. Let's put it into English. And not great performance, but not bad either. Interestingly, they don't show the current, which I don't like. They should definitely show the current. Everyone should show the current, because I think that's the most important part here. Showing the voltage but not showing the current is very odd in my opinion, but what do I know? And yeah, they have a lot of different roaming options. We got their gas station, and I think the coolest part about Uno X is that they show their charging rate, and they do kWt because hour is something that starts with T in Norwegian. So it's 4.8 kroner per kilowatt hour. And they show that on their totem, not only here as you get closer, but also all the way over there, which you can see from the motorway. So that is just awesome. And it's also kind of cool. So it looks like they actually ripped out a gas pump and have not replaced it with another gas pump. So maybe they're planning on putting some charging under the canopy here. That'd be pretty cool. It's becoming quite common in Norway that gas pumps are actually being ripped out and chargers are being put in. Looks like that one's maybe been out for a while, or maybe someone just damaged that plate, but that's the point in the market that Norway is at. You can even see the signage there on that building for a hot something in Spicery. I don't know what that is. But ID3 is looking nice. I like this car. Well, I figured out our route for tomorrow, so I set our charge limit to 70%, which is just about any minute now. Because it looks like the first charger we'll go to is about 130 or so kilometers away. And we'll stop there regardless, so not really any reason to charge more. And we're only about 2 miles from our hotel, so let's get this charging session wrapped up and get to the hotel. So we were here for about 17 minutes. Not a great charging session, but the battery was not preconditioned or anything, so not unexpected. But yeah, we're gonna head to the hotel and then get on with it. Well, we're headed to the hotel, and it's kind of in Lillesand proper. It should be a nice, like, little cottage type hotel, I think. I don't know, it had good reviews, was reasonably priced, so I figured, why the heck not? Let's get to it. It's 1.8 miles away. Well, we made it to our hotel. Hotel Norge. I don't know, maybe. I need to clean up the camera, though. It's still kind of foggy. Strange. Yeah, we're going to go check in. There is AC charging. Maybe you can see it back there. But we're going to check into the hotel, see if this is even where we're supposed to park or not, and then go from there. This will be my first time using a bring your own cable AC charging system. So that'll be an interesting experience. Never done that before, so kind of cool, I guess. I think I can use Elton for it because it's a Mare charging station, so that'd be nice. Bethany, is this the smallest room we've ever stayed in? The Amsterdam one was pretty darn small.
That's close, but
That one at least had some floor space.
the bathroom makes it small, for sure.
Okay, I haven't even seen the bathroom yet, but just so that's the door you come in. Here's the bed, which is actually, the bed is totally normal size. This is like probably a queen, I guess, ish. I don't know what they actually call it, but fine size. And then there's a tiny TV, a little Nespresso machine type thing. There's a window, which we can overlook the parking. Oh, I guess out there. But interesting. It's like I guess a Norwegian redneck, I guess, is how you describe that backyard. But otherwise, a very lovely little town. That is a tiny bathroom.
Is there a shower?
What? Yes, there's a shower. It's just very small. The whole door moves.
Push your door.
That... It's interesting that there's like a seal here, as if that's going to do anything.
Unless you're supposed to. Okay, so I don't know.
Interesting. And it's very small. They did offer if we wanted to upgrade, I think, for 500 kroner, so $50-ish, which for one night, probably not worthwhile. But let's open the window. It's a little warm in here. If I can figure out how to open the window. There we go. We'll get some flow in here.
Flow.
Isn't the lobby beautiful?
It's very cute.
I don't think I'd want to stay here more than one night, but for one night, this is a cool experience.
It's like an experience place.
Yeah.
Like it's a cool, get the vibe of like a local spot, not some like huge corporation hotel.
Yeah. I love my Marriotts and Hiltons, but these kinds of hotels are cool. And we're back in the car. Let me show you guys the stats for today. Once it loads. So I think that's the short term. And there's the long term. So that's the one I won't reset tomorrow morning. So we drove 364 kilometers, 5 hours, 21 minutes. I believe that's just driving time. And we averaged 4 miles per kilowatt hour at 68 kilometers per hour. So I guess these are the same. And then that was for that last charge, but that was a very short period. So overall, very efficient, but also not that surprising given the very low speeds. And 364 kilometers, that's roughly 220-ish miles off the top of my head, something like that. So not too bad. Definitely not the fastest road trip day. That would be just the first leg of most US road trips, but considering all the scenic driving and all the charging stops and a little bit late start, that's not bad at all. Well, today was Bethany's first day road tripping in Norway. What did you think?
I like it. I like that it's more laid back, and it definitely has more like Northeast New England vibes throughout a lot of it, especially as you get out of Oslo.
And what did you think of charging and EVs and just like the overall experience compared to the US with Tesla and my Lightning?
I think there's definitely a lot less stress surrounding it.
And why is that?
Because the stops are everywhere.
Would you, if you drove an EV here, would you drive it like you drive a gas car in the US and just basically drive until you're low and then pull off somewhere? Or would you still plan a route?
I think I might still plan a route because the difference being that there's a lack of amenities at a lot of them. So if I'm truly doing a road trip, I'd prefer to plan for amenities than to have to stop at like a gas station every time and have the same like 5 options of a snack versus like if I can say like, okay, we're going to stop at a place with like a true restaurant or like a coffee shop or something nearby.
So it's less planning for charging and more planning because you want to have the best stop.
Yes, but in a sense, that's what you do when you plan our U.S. road trips, so...
I guess fair, yeah. I mean, even now, the Tesla supercharger network in the U.S. is to the point that you can pretty much just drive for the most part, other than, like, more rural routes. But if you're on a main interstate, you can pretty much just drive, and most likely there will be a supercharger or something else fairly often. But yeah, today was a lot of charger visits, not a whole lot of distance covered. I definitely need to grab a clip in the car when we go back outside of the stats. So I'll grab that for you guys and I'll put it at the end because I definitely forgot to grab that when we came back up.
You didn't go very far.
No, I think we did like 370 kilometers, something like that, but not very far. We stopped at a lot of charging stations. Tomorrow we'll be covering about the same amount of distance, but less charging stations and more scenic stuff. So definitely, if you haven't already, hit the like button and subscribe button. So that way you see tomorrow's road trip, which will be probably a week or so after this. And definitely comment down below. I'm planning on posting this in 2 different ways. One as kind of a road trip style video with my time lapses and all the driving, and probably even more than usual just with how beautiful Norway is. And then also a more condensed version, since I know some people don't like the road trip part or like the time-lapse part and just want the content. So I'll probably post a version as a road trip first, which will probably be what you're seeing now. and then also a more condensed one with more just the charging stops and such like that. So I would like to hear what you guys think of that, since this will be the same ending in both videos. Since they'll be otherwise the same video, I'll basically just post the road trip time-lapse version and then copy that project and chop out all the time lapses other than like 30 seconds just as a transition, and then post that again. So would love to hear what you guys think. Looking forward to tomorrow. That's all uncharted territory for both of us, because I've driven from Oslo to Bamble area, but I haven't gone past, so this is all new. And then this is entirely new for Bethany because this is her first time in Norway. So definitely, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys for watching.